Today I want to show you a pattern or exercise using this simple but amazing sounding 4-chord progression. We're going to go through a couple of different positions you can use to practice getting a little bit of freedom with chords, add some variety and make it sound more interesting. And then stick around because I want to show you a method for how you can start to get a little bit more creative with something like this. Make it more your own thing, more distinctive, adjusting the pattern and using a couple of extra notes to add some colour. Okay, let's go through the chords we're going to use then. Now, when we play chords, we can actually play chords in different positions to get different kinds of sounds, different ranges on the piano. But I'm going to show you the technically easiest positions to move through these chords to start with. The first chord is a C major. We are in the key of C major. So, the first chord, we're going to play like this. We're going to break the notes up in a minute. But this is the position we're going to use. Now, you may recognise a C major as being this. That's called a root position. But all I've done is I've rearranged the order of the notes. We've got C, E and G. I've just played the C up here instead. We call that a first inversion position. If that doesn't make sense, don't worry about it for this video. I've got some links in the description where you can learn all about inversions. That's really helpful and important to learn. So there's the right hand position. In the left hand, we're just going to hold the root note of each chord. So the note that the chord's named after. So a C down here in this case. Now, we're going to break the notes up into this pattern. And once you've got the pattern, we can apply this pattern to all the positions to start with. So the pattern is in the right hand, the top note, then the bottom note, then the middle note, then the bottom note. And we repeat that. Top, bottom, middle, bottom. Top, bottom, middle, bottom. And all we do is, with the left hand, we start off with hands together, and then for now, we're just going to hold that left hand down. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now just remember, as you're playing this, try and keep a little bit of movement in your arm to get your kind of weight over the top of the note that you're using. So using your arm weight in a good hand position helps your fingers bring down the notes. We don't want a static hand with jerky fingers. We want to keep that nice relaxed movement, nice loose wrist, and maintain a better hand position like this. The second chord, all we have to do to get to that is from the first chord, we just lower this top note down from C to B. And then that gives us E, G, and B now, which is an E minor chord. And that's just a root position, the most basic way of playing the chord. And in our left hand, we're just going to move up to E, like this. And just repeat the same pattern again for one bar. The next chord is an F major. So this position for the F major, just move the same shape up along the white keys. That gives us F, A, and C. And in our left hand, you just move up from E to the next finger along to F. Play the same pattern again. And then the fourth chord is F minor. Now we're changing F major to F minor here. So this is one of my favorite types of chord changes in music, and it's what really gives this that kind of lush, melancholic feel to it. What kind of piano-based music do you listen to? What's your favorite pieces, favorite artists, any genres? Let me know down below in the comments. To change F major to F minor, all we do is we lower the A, which is the middle one, how we're playing it here, down to A flat. And in that position, we just do the same pattern again. And we can hit the F again in our left hand. Then that kind of sinks back down to the C major. And from there, we can just loop the chords around again. Okay, so let's put that all together. And what you want to think about here as well is the kind of add a bit of emotion to it. So we're really after a kind of gentle, slow, soft sound, a nice soft touch on the piano. And you may have noticed I'm using a little bit of pedal as well, just to help the kind of sound come together. And I find with something like this, we can make it sound that much nicer with a little bit of pedal. Just a quick bit of theory about these chords. We're in the key of C major, we're using the C major scale. The first chord, C major, begins on the first note of the scale. So we're going to call that chord number 1, and we usually write chord numbers with Roman numerals. The next chord, E minor, begins on the third note of the scale, so we're going to call that chord number 3, and for minor chords we use lowercase letters. The F major chord begins on the fourth note of the scale, so that's chord number 4, and then the F minor chord still starts on the fourth note of the scale, but it's minor, so we're going to call it 4 minor, so then we use the lowercase letters for that. Now this chord uses a note, the A flat, that goes out of the scale. So chords that stick inside the scale are called diatonic chords. If a chord has any notes that goes out of the key, we call that a non-diatonic chord. So changing chord 4 from a major to a minor has been used quite a lot in music, and it creates that kind of slowing down, sinking feeling. But remember, it won't always be F major to F minor, it will be whatever chord number 4 is in the key that you're in. So in the key of G major, C is the fourth note in the G major scale. So in that case, it would be C major changing to C minor. And then quite often that's going to go back to the 1 chord. Now, if you recognize the sound of that chord movement in a song and you know what key you're in, you know where to find those chords. So to add some variation, some interest to this, we can use different positions to play those chords. What we can do is we're going to use some higher positions. So starting off with the C. So the C major chord was here, but if we just put the bottom note on the top again, so E up here instead, we've still got the same notes, just in a different order, so it's still a C major chord. This is called a second inversion position, and in that position we just do the same pattern. We can keep the left hand exactly where it was. And then from there, to get to the second chord, we just lower the middle note C down to B. And that's how it moved before. The C went down to B. It was just on top before. Like that. Again, E in the left hand here. And now to get to the F, we can just move this shape up along the white keys. So take that shape and move it up along like this. So notice how you've got a smaller gap here and a bigger gap there. Same, just the F in the left hand again. Now to change this to F minor, this position, we have to still lower the A to A flat. So we move the A down a half step. Now just bear in mind here, because your thumb is on it, we're really going to have to move our hand up and forward to be able to reach that comfortably. You don't want to be twisting like that. Move your hand position more forward. And then we can use your thumb here to kind of lift up and get back in your hand position for the first C chord again. So let's put that all together. Now what you could also do there actually is you could play the C and the E in these higher positions, but then you could still come down to the F and the A and the F minor in those lower positions. We could mix and match. Just a helpful tip, when you're moving from one chord to the next, a lot of the time, it's not a golden rule, but a lot of the time it sounds really nice when we move to a position that's close from the last chord like we were in those examples, like the C to the E, only moved one note downwards. And that creates this nice kind of smooth moving sound from chord to chord. If you jump around too much, it can sound a little bit plonky sometimes. So even with those positions, and you can explore some higher positions as well, you can create a lot of variety in how you play a chord progression like that. Once you start to get comfortable with a pattern like this, then you can start to play around a bit more and have some fun with it. And we can add some variety by changing a couple of notes occasionally to colour the sound and add a bit of extra melodic movement in there and really make it your own, make it sound unique. As always, there's endless possibilities, but I'm going to give you some ideas of how you can get started simply. If we just look at the C chord in this lower position to start with, a good way to start is just by sometimes moving the highest note you've got in the position you're in your right hand, and we can try moving it to another note up or down in the key still though. So in the scale that we're using, remember we're just in the C major scale here, so that's only white notes in this case. Let's try this. At some point I'm going to use the note D, which is just the next note up from our current highest note C. But this will involve slightly adjusting the pattern. Now if you do that followed by the next chord, that moves quite nicely. Let me go around the chords a couple of times and give you some ideas to get started. Now with something like this, there's always a bit of experimentation involved, so use your ears. Try things out and discover what works and what you like. I recommend only changing one note per chord to start with, and you don't have to do it on every chord. At the end there, I actually changed two notes. And then back to the C. We can try this in the higher positions as well. And remember, you can mix up the positions as well. How about this? So I changed the pattern a bit more on that final chord there. And all my thinking was really, well, I discovered that I like the sound of adding that D to the F minor chord. That gives us an F minor 6 sound. And then I created a pattern that involved that note that added that extra colour to it. So I started here again, then jumped to the bottom, climbed up through the chord, went to the extra note, came back down, and just came back down through the chord tones, and then finished by landing on the C. Once that's comfortable, you can perhaps try and change more than one note, this kind of thing. There's endless things that you can do that you can play around with, ways to make it memorable, unique, and really make it your own. Just watch out when you're on the F minor chord, because we've changed the A to A flat, you don't want to be using the A there. So you can use all the white notes apart from A, where you'd use the A flat instead. Remember, I've got a ton of videos linked down in the description and on the channel below to help you learn about different kinds of chords and your inversions, that kind of stuff, help you find them easily. And I've got a bunch of PDFs too available on my website to help you with all that stuff and scales and things like that too you can check out. Something handy to have for your practice, and there's a link for those down below. Now we've been keeping the left hand very minimal this whole time because we've been working on our right hand for this exercise. But if you're wondering how you could add more in the left hand to this pattern, then let me know down in the comments and perhaps I can do a follow-up video if enough people want to see that. But essentially though, with this kind of thing here in the left hand, I would still start on the same root note of each chord, and then you can kind of layer things up a bit, build things up by using some other notes above that are also in the chord that you're on at the time. And you can just kind of place them on different beats, and you want to see if you can come up with something that feels cohesive with a little bit of variation here and there to make it distinctive. Maybe something like this. So for the C chord, I just use these notes here. They're all notes from the chord, the root, the fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the root again up here. I use the same shape on the E minor chord, root and the fifth, and then the octave. The F major chord, I just used a regular chord shape and broke them up like that. And then the F minor chord, I based it on the chord shape to start with, but we learned earlier that the D sounded nice with that chord, so I incorporated that so make the left hand kind of more melodic and more distinctive. I hope that was helpful. Next, you can click here to learn more about the diatonic chords in a key, or you can watch this video next to learn 5 must-know basic chord accompaniment patterns. If you're subscribed, make sure to click the notification bell so YouTube tells you when there's a new video out. Thanks for watching.